let's talk about responsive web design and how it's been a shift from actual web design and its practice and how it benefits things going forward. All right, so if you're ready, let's get into it. Thanks for joining the fun. We're talking about responsive web design today. And this is in regards to how people are using technology. Now, studies have shown that most of hard, difficult tasks, longer-term tasks are done on the desktop. But most of our viewing and browsing usage is coming from mobile. Now, when it comes to applications, SaaS products, you want to make a really large shift from understanding what needs to be entirely on the desktop for access and what you can pare down for mobile. So we're going to talk about a few tips for that. But first, don't forget, like the video and share it with someone you know that it can help. Sharing is caring. The first thing you want to do when we talk about responsive design is focus on your grids. The grids will be your safe guide, and it'll help you outline not only content, typography, but all the assets needed for you to move that design into a more structured way. Now, we're talking about 12-column grids, we're talking about 16-column grids, point systems. All of those things matter when we talk about responsive design because you'll use those as guides to then shift if the desktop needs to expand and capture that content or contract when you're viewing at smaller sizes. Device screens, think tablets, think mobile devices. It matters. The next thing we'll talk about is media queries. And these are really CSS styles. These are really usage of CSS. What they do is they make calls to specific sizes that adjust depending on the device you're viewing it on. So whether you have a max width at 100% or you have a max width at 80 pixels or 80%, from font sizes to images, things of that nature, you can control that in the CSS style. These media queries allow for the flexibility between not only assets, but for the performance of your site. Make sure you're looking into media queries. This is more of a front-end development sort of thing, but it's one to keep in mind. And it also lends itself to the next point, assets. Now, this is in relation to any imagery, any photos, graphical elements, all of those things. We want to make them very responsive. You can do that by not only compressing those images. This allows for performance load. So for example, when a page is loaded of content, if your image is extremely large, it'll take a while for that image to populate. So if you compress those and really capture the details of that image, then you'll have the ability, once viewed on mobile or other devices, for it to load faster. This helps with site performance all the way around. And again, with media queries, you can actually target those images so that you can compress or expand depending on the device you're viewing them on. All right. So responsive imagery compression is the way to go. There are a ton of tools out there that you can literally use, plugins, features where you can compress those files and have them performing 9 times to 10 times better for your site. Now think of like retina display, non-retina display. We're talking DPI, PPI for higher resolution. We can really get into semantics and technical things, but just know compressing those files, compressing those assets will be beneficial in the long run. One thing to make note of in responsive design are breakpoints. Make sure that you understand and really adhere to your breakpoints. Content-based breakpoints and device-based breakpoints. When it comes to content, how the content is being viewed on whatever device, you can shift and manipulate that content to display better. Right? Same thing applies when you're doing experiences. Your experience in landscape mode will be different from portrait mode if you're using a tablet or a mobile device. So you be mindful, be very mindful of content and how it's being displayed, and then shifting those things accordingly so you can get the best viewing, the best experience you can from this device and your content, right? That's the ultimate reason why you're there on any site, or you're there to consume any information. All right. So those are all the tips that I have for you today to illustrate the point of making responsive design part of your repertoire. Okay. So it's one thing to also build SaaS products exclusively to, let's say, a desktop or web app experience. And it's another to design it on mobile application singularly. I can't talk today. However, if you're doing that with the responsive capabilities and the thought to be responsive in mind, those are some tips that will help you out in the long run to make sure your experience is seamless, not only from the desktop, but to whatever device you tend to shift to. All right. Hope that helps. And I hope it gave you value to kind of move forward in your design journey. So feel free to like this video again, share it with someone you feel it will help. And because, sharing is caring. I always say that. And be sure to know that your life has color. So be sure to design it that way. All right. And we will see you in the next one. Feel free to let me also know if there's any specific content you want me to share or cover, especially in the design thinking space, UI design, all that. We'll get down to the nitty gritty. I'll see you in the next one. Thank you and take care. Bye. We're talking tablets as massive as this desktop retina display. We're talking talking. I can't talk today. I don't understand why.